Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Influence Economy podcast. I'm your host, Shayna Davis, and I'm so glad that you're here. But before we get started, if you've listened before, you know that I've got a favor to ask you. So, wherever it is that you are listening to this episode, I want you to take a screenshot. With that screenshot, I want you to post it on your social media. Tag us here at Shayna Rattler Davis. And then I just want to hear your biggest aha moment or your biggest takeaway from this episode. And the reason why I do that is that, in my opinion, there are far too many women that are seen, but they just aren't paid well. And the more times that we share these episodes, the more people can be exposed to the shifts that are going to be required in order for them to be able to own their influence. Because, quite frankly, everybody doesn't know where to start. So I appreciate you in advance for being willing to share. I'm going to read my guest's bio and then we're going to get to it. My guest today is a leadership coach and former director of engineering with over 20 years of experience in the tech industry. She specializes in helping managers develop strategic leadership skills, build confidence, and navigate complex organizational challenges. Her leadership journey includes scaling engineering teams, improving team retention, and fostering collaboration across diverse teams. As a coach, she empowers clients to own their strengths, influence effectively, and craft strategies to manage workloads and develop high performing teams. Her results driven coaching experience blends deep tech experience with empathy, equipping managers to thrive in their roles and create meaningful organizational impact. I'm excited to welcome to the show Limor Bergman Gross.
Hi, Shayna. How are you? Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you here. And so, audience, let me tell you how committed she is. She lives in Israel, and we are so on the different time zones, but I'm excited to have her here. Several months ago, I had the pleasure of being on the other side of the mic on her show, and we just knew then that we needed to collaborate even further. So I'm so glad you're here today.
Absolutely, Shayna. And it's wonderful to talk to you again.
Absolutely. So let's get to it. You are the second person in the last month that I've had on the show who comes from what are traditionally male dominated industries and male dominated um, roles. And so I'm curious if we could just start with what challenges did you have to overcome in order to become a thought leader in tech and engineering?
Yeah, that's a tough question because there are many. I think the first challenge was just because I was one off, or either the only woman or one of very few women. I felt a lot of times like the odd duck. I felt different. So that by itself just made me feel uncomfortable a lot of times and less confident, rather than my male counterparts. I'm relatively shy and introverted by nature, although it may not look like, but I am, which eventually, held me back from being vocal about what I wanted. And I started to seeing the impact of that when I saw my male counterpart, like they are not shying away from saying what they want or from, talking about their accomplishments. And I've seen like people around me starting to get leadership roles while I was stuck. And the challenge for me as a woman at that point, like one of the defining moments of my career was actually when I became a mom. So when I have four children, but when I became a mom for the first time, I was happy to be a mom, but I was miserable at my career. I was not happy at my career. And I was kind of trapped because I wanted to grow my career, but I also wanted to, grow my family. So at some point, I had to make a very difficult decision. Do I expand my family or do I leave the job that I hate and look for something else? And I wish I didn't have to make that choice, right? I wish I could just do both, as men do, right? I mean, men can do both things at the same time, but women, maybe today more than back then. But now, back then I wasn't able to really look for a job while I was pregnant. That makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense. I want to unpack something that you talked about. You talked about being in this male dominated space and not necessarily having the confidence, especially not having what appeared to be the confidence that the men demonstrated. So if you look at Limor prior to being in engineering and prior to working tech companies, would you have considered yourself a confident person at that point?
Yeah, before I even started, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to question because it was so many years ago.
Yeah,
And I think some of that comes with age, right? You know, with maturity. I would say probably I wasn't a super confident person even before starting my career, if I want
right.
to be very frank about it.
I asked that question because I'm always curious when people find themselves in particular circumstances, if there's something about the circumstance that brings out positive or not so positive traits, or if they were just naturally inclined for that character trait to begin with. Because I've talked to some women where they were like, it was the darndest thing because I was always the most confident and the most outspoken. And then I got in this room, and it may not necessarily always be with men. Sometimes it's in rooms with people that feel like they're 50 steps ahead of them. And they're like, now all of a sudden, I'm this shy girl, I'm this quiet girl. And I was never that way. And so that's why I asked the question, was there something about the industry or the room that caused your confidence to dip? Or is that something that you had struggled with anyway?
Yeah, yeah. So I think in my case, I wouldn't say that it's drastically changed, you know, when I started working, but I would say that I was always shy and introverted, even as a child. And when I went to computer science, so after school, after military, I went to study computer science. And I won't forget the first day at the university. I enter a room. It was I don't know what it was, if it was like algebra or some math class. It's a huge auditorium of about 400 people. Almost all of them were men. Maybe I could spot maybe a handful of women.
Yeah.
So think about that. How intimidating is it to get into, when you are already shy and introverted, to get into such a huge room and then to find out you're basically, you know, almost the only woman there.
So, how did you navigate that? Did you find your footing and get your confidence? I imagine that you wouldn't have spent 20, 30 years in this industry and in this role if you were feeling suppressed. So, how did you navigate that and find a way to become more confident in order to rise through the ranks and be as effective as you were?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's about support system, first of all, and personal growth, right? I mean, despite feeling uncomfortable, I always challenge myself to do something that makes me feel uncomfortable and grow. I never took a victim approach. And that's, by the way, what I do with my clients. I'm not taking the, oh, we are victims and we need kind of, you know, we're so a bias and all that, more of like we have the responsibility and we can change things. So I always took the ownership and responsibility together with the support system. So my husband, my family, friends, you know, colleagues at work, allies, in order to grow.
When I was doing my research and preparing for this interview, I saw some things that you wrote somewhere, and you were talking about, visibility, becoming credible, kind of that journey, if you will. And so what is your approach to making visibility intentional? And then how do you bridge that to credibility?
Yeah, that's another great question. So first of all, I think as women we have that, and I'm generalizing. I know not all women are alike, but we have the tendency to be kind of, you know, quiet and to just do our work and hope that we will be noticed and recognized, right? In some cases it works, but in most cases, it's actually, you know, it doesn't help us, actually sabotage our growth. So I think first of all, it starts with being intentional about what growth look like to you. What do you want in your career? Because if you don't know what you want, how will you get there? Like for me, because I didn't advocate it, I wanted to become a manager even before I even had kids. My manager just assumed I wanted to stay as an engineer, so they continued to giving me like promotion related to engineering roles, right? I mean, so first you need to know what you want. Once you know what you want, you need to start advocate for yourself and kind of externalize, hey, those are the things I want. and start thinking, how can I take initiatives and show my capabilities in a way that aligns with the business goals, but also with my personal aspirations?
I love that you talked about advocating for yourself because I am a huge proponent. I say all the time, just because you're seen doesn't mean you're valued. And so it bothers me when I hear advice, whether it's in a book or an interview or otherwise, where women are told that they just need to be seen and they just need to be show up. They just need to show up. And there are many of us that are visible, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's translating into being valuable. And so, what would you say is the best way that you, once we've identified, like, hey, this is what it is that I want, what is the best way for us to advocate for ourselves to make sure that our visibility is then translating into that valuable credibility?
Definitely. I mean, I think that once you figure out what you want, first of all, you need to tell everyone about it. Not in the way that is demanding, threatening, or anything like that, but just talk about it. So people know around you, this is, oh, I want to become a manager. So everyone knows that that's what you want. Because when people know what you want, sometimes opportunities, will just, be at your doorstep. You never
Yeah.
know. Oh, I know she wants to be a manager. So that's the first thing. Just tell everyone that's what I want. And so, for some reason, a lot of times we shy away from saying what we want. I don't see that as, why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we say that? And then find opportunities to shine that show why you are, like in my example, like if I want to become a manager, why am I, a fit for that? What strength do I have? What are the things that I do there that show my capability? Like maybe I'm good with people, I build good relationships, I'm able to resolve conflicts. I have a vision. And start talking about those things with your manager and also with peers and allies. So people actually see you. So you say, I want to be a manager, and you start talking like a manager, you start kind of sharing all the things that you're doing. So people actually start seeing you as a potential leader.
And I would add to that, don't assume that they see you the way that you see yourself. And don't assume that they see you the way that you think that they see you. Because oftentimes we believe that we are demonstrating the qualities and the characteristics that are going to get us noticed, that are going to get us paid, that are going to get us promoted. And it's not until, we're looked over and then we have a conversation that they're like, oh, well, I never even really saw you demonstrating those qualities. This is what you could do more of. This is what you could do better. So I would say that part of advocating for yourself is, Limor is absolutely right. Once you know what it is that you want and you tell people what it is that you want, ask the people that are around you, especially those that could be directly responsible for giving you those levels of elevation. Am I already demonstrating the qualities and characteristics that you would look for in someone who says that they want what it is that I want? If so, yes, double down on those. If not, it puts you in a better position because how many times, Lemore, have you seen people get passed over? Then they ask the questions, why am I constantly getting looked over? Only to find out that there's so many things that they could have been doing for the last 12 to 18 months that probably would have put them in a better position for the promotion.
Absolutely. And I think this is why it's so important to be intentional and start having those conversations. So, not just saying what I want, not just saying, oh, those are the things I'm doing, but also asking for feedback constantly from your manager and from other people. And this is one thing I would like to say, Shayna. A lot of times we feel uncomfortable putting our manager in maybe an uncomfortable situation. Because
Yeah.
let's say I want to be a manager and there is no rec open, okay? And there are no opportunities. Then I will feel, oh, I don't want to put my manager in an uncomfortable position because he doesn't have anything to offer me. No, don't think that way. Just the conversation itself will help you because your manager will know what you want. You'll have a discussion about how am I going to get there? Like, what are the things that you already see? This is what I see, but what do you think? What are the things I need to do? And whether or not a position open, you're already stepping towards that goal. If you get it in the current, department, company, or somewhere else, yet to be seen. But still, I mean, you're having those conversations, you're getting feedback, growing.
And you said it earlier, you can't assume that people know that that's what you want. You didn't tell them you wanted to be a manager, so they just kept promoting your engineering roles and not really moving you into what it is that you want. And I was watching a show on television last night, and there was an attorney, and she like stormed in her boss's office because of course she waited until she had like had it up to here. She was completely fed up before she said anything. And she stormed in her boss's office, and she was like, everything you keep giving me is the roles of the assistant, and you're not treating me like a this and you're not treating me like a that. And they were like, I didn't even know you wanted that. So
Wow,
she made the assumption
this
that
is
everybody
powerful.
knew what it was that she wanted. And as soon as she opened her mouth and said what she wanted, she immediately got what she wanted. Now, I'm not saying that to say that your results are going to be immediate, but they could oftentimes be a lot faster than what you would think they are if you would just speak up. And like you said, we speak up in so many other environments, but then when it comes to advocating for what it is that we want, now all of a sudden we have a lump in our throats.
For sure. And think about it. We, as women, we're really good at advocating for others, for our children, for our spouses, for our friends. So we need to do the same for us. And I would say for that show that you mentioned, I haven't seen it, but I would say that also that woman probably saw herself as an assistant in a way. So she kind of externalized, oh, I'm an assistant. Because a lot of the communication happened without saying any single word. So
Yeah.
you have to first see yourself as someone who is capable of being more than, in her case, an assistant, showcasing yourself as more than that so others can see that as well.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about how we can navigate some of the most common challenges that we find when we're trying to establish our thought leadership. We'll be right back. Ready to turn your influence into income? Take the Influence Growth Assessment. In just minutes, you'll uncover the next steps to grow your visibility, attract bigger opportunities, and boost your profitability. Visit myinfluencestyle.com to take the assessment today. A new era of success is waiting. Let's make it yours. All right, welcome back. So, we're discussing thought leadership and how women can navigate, especially when they are in male dominated rooms. And one of the things that I know for sure, I don't know that anyone would argue with this, is that oftentimes there's a double standard of how women are perceived when they speak up or when they challenge any norms that are out there. And so, how should they navigate this if they feel like or they know that they're receiving some type of negative backlash or suppression or the opposite of, because we would like to think that, hey, speak up, challenge the norms, advocate for yourself, and you're going to get exactly what you want. How do they navigate it if it feels like it's having a negative effect?
Yeah, this is a tough one because unfortunately, yes, there is a lot of bias and there are some perceptions about how women should behave versus men. And you
Yeah.
heard probably the statement of women that are assertive are seen as aggressive. Well, men, they just seen as assertive. So it kind of really difficult because on the one hand, we want to be treated seriously and be assertive, but we don't want people to say, oh, why are you so demanding? Why are you so emotional? Whatever that may be, right? I mean, so I think the best strategy, first of all, to put emotions aside as much as possible and try to cooperate. Try to lean into what are the motivations of the other person. It's always helpful because when we enter a conversation with thinking only about what we want to get out of it, we forget to think about the other person and what they want. But it doesn't always help if there are a lot of biases. I would say, very frankly. And the best strategy to overcome that is to form allyship with other people who are well respected. So actually, we can find male allies that will speak on our behalf. I don't want to say that, oh, we should just shut up and let someone else to advocate for us. Absolutely not. But in cases where you're facing biases, it's good to have allies that will speak for you and help you. And I had a few of those in my career.
Yeah, we all need allies. We all need champions. We don't get there alone, regardless of where we are, what we're experiencing. None of us get there alone. And I would say this is that this is my own personal take on how I've always handled things personally and professionally. I try as much as I can to be part of the solution. But you know, without a shadow of the doubt, if you're willing to be honest with yourself, when you are in a situation that you're never going to make headway. And you have to be willing to say, I'm going to give a certain amount of time frame, to be able to see things change, because there's some environments that doing the right things, you can affect change. There's some environments, and it's usually dependent on who the people are, especially the leaders are, that no matter what you do, good, bad, indifferent, perfect, novel, innovative, that you're never going to be able to affect change. And you have to be willing to be honest with yourself of when you're like, listen, it doesn't matter what I do, this environment, I'm never going to be able to affect change, and I'm never going to be able to get what I want. And you have to realize when it's time to cut your losses and go somewhere where you'll actually be valued.
Absolutely agree with you, Shayna. I think knowing when to walk away is so important because a lot of times we tend to think, you know, how many women come to me and say, what have I done wrong? Right? I mean, say, I'm not able to do this or I'm not able to influence. What have I done wrong? And in many cases, it's nothing about them. It's all about the other person or the situation or the company or whatever. I mean, and as much as we want to influence, as much as we want to take responsibility, sometimes it just doesn't work, or maybe it doesn't worth our effort and the emotional investment from our side in that, right? I mean, if you are in an environment that is unhealthy or unsupportive or whatever it may be, and you feel you need to put so much, not just like effort, like doing the work, but emotionally it affects you, then you have to ask yourself, is it worth it? Or maybe it's time to walk away and try something else.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I know as we begin to wrap up is that with the continuing rise of STEM, with the continuing rise of all things technology, you're just quite naturally going to find more and more women that are in what used to be male dominated. They may always dominate them in terms of numbers, but I believe that we will begin to dominate in terms of thought leadership and, some of the other things that we bring to the table. But what internal mindset shift is an absolute non-negotiable for a woman that is in a male dominated room?
I think that the absolute non-negotiate is that you're there because you deserve to be there. And the fact that you're different is a good thing. It's actually a strength. It's not a deficit. And this is something that haunted me for many years, right? I felt like, oh, I'm not as assertive as this person. I'm not as charismatic as this person, whatever it may be. But I'm so many other things. So start looking at what you are and not what you're not,
Yeah.
realizing you're there for a reason and you're different. It's a good thing. The organization, the department, they need you. They need your perspective and they need the value that you bring.
That's so good. So I'm curious, if people want to take things further with you, what social media handle do you recommend that they follow you on?
LinkedIn is probably the best. Limor Bergman is the handle. That's the best way to find me, where I post everything I do, my podcast, new programs that I'm launching, everything.
Awesome. And if someone is listening to this and they're like, I need more of this type of coaching and advice in my life, what would you like to offer if they want to take things further with you?
Definitely. I mean, first of all, I have a free kind of, career steps assessment they
Okay.
can do. So I'll share with you the link. And I'm launching actually a program in September. It's a new one that I'm launching. I've never done that before. It's a combination of one-to-one coaching, but also a group. So it's going to be a cohort of 12 women. And it's called Strategic Influence and Executive Presence Accelerator. I'm very excited about that because I want to see women thrive together. So with my individual support, but also with the group support.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Lee Moore, for being here. Everyone, please share this episode with every woman that you know. Even if they're an entrepreneur, the things that we have discussed today are important for any woman that is wanting to see her thought leadership go to another level. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your nuggets. Everyone, I hope that you will go back and listen to previous and future episodes as well. Everyone, have a great day. Bye bye.